As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Sleeping with the Numbers podcast. Dylan and Pat here with, we weren't real sure what we were going to do this episode. My initial thought was, okay, maybe we'll talk some basketball, hockey, all that. And then basketball is taking a break today. They're doing their all-star weekend game. I don't really know. I don't really pay attention to basketball. Although if you've been following my Action Network, which seems to be happening now for whatever reason, I have been doing a lot of NBA prop bets. Those have been pretty fun, and getting some of those same game parlays. Those have been going well. So if you want to do that, follow me on Action Network at Fantasy Football, PYANTASY. Pat is on Action Network at Pat_Fox. And then you can follow the podcast at SWTN_podcast. So Super Bowl happened. Rams pull it out. It happened exactly the way Pat and I said it would. Rams to win, Bengals to cover. Oh, I thought it was a pretty decent Super Bowl, Pat. Did you have any conflicting thoughts there? I know people are pissed about the refs, but that seems to be just pretty much every single game. Overall, I'm just happy it's two different teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I was pretty excited with whichever way it would have turned out, right? I was rooting for Aaron Donald just to see him get the MVP because, obviously it's good that TJ Watt got NFL Defensive Player of the Year. But it's always nice to see Aaron Donald get awards because, him being a pick guy, him being one of the best defensive linemen ever, totally deserving. But like you said, I'm really glad, the Rams pulled out. I was really hoping they wouldn't blow their load against the Bengals. I was really worried about that. But for me, I think that it was a good game outside of the missed call on T. Higgins, which if the Bengals would have won, that's what people would have talked about for the rest of the year. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I think overall the game was good.
Yeah, it was exciting. Low scoring, like you said, you're like, I'm taking the under easily. That hit. So I mean, you hit the triple crown there with the money line, the spread, and the over under. So that was very well done. Low scoring game. Even the Bengals defense kind of stepped up. We see some spots where they need to patch up, and it's been the same way the whole entire season. The Bengals offensive line needs help, but it's hard to make the argument that Ja'Marr Chase wasn't the right pick in last year's draft because he blew, I think, all expectations in my mind. Ends up getting Offensive Rookie of the Year. Just every time he touched the ball, it seemed like he was going to take it for a touchdown, and a lot of times he fell within the 5-yard line or something like that. But I think very bright future, and in this upcoming draft, which we are going to do a mock round one draft here, way too early, but it's something to do. Though I think I would expect them to finally get that line built up to protect Joe Burrow. But before we get into the draft, let's talk about some of the free agents going into 2022. A lot of decently big names here, and then also a few trade candidates, which probably unlikely to happen, but it's still fun to talk about, especially when football's basically over for the next month or so until the combine happens. Then we can start talking about things in more depth. So let's just start off with the big guy. Davante Adams going into 2022 will be a free agent. I personally do not see him going anywhere. Even if Rodgers leaves, it would be a mistake for Green Bay to let him go. I expect them to franchise tag him if they can't get a long-term deal done. Pat, do you see it any other way?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, the note that they have here is something that makes sense is he could have a reunion with college quarterback Derek Carr in Las Vegas. Why? Why would he ever want to do that? If he's on, the best spot for him is right here in Green Bay. One, they can currently afford him. Two, if Rodgers ends up staying, which remember, he is still technically under contract. He can't just leave. Yes, he probably controls his own destiny because he's a 2-time in a row MVP type of guy, but they do not have to let him go anywhere. They do not have to let him work out his own trade. It's either, hey, you're playing for us or you're retiring. So I think both of them end up staying in Green Bay. It just makes sense to build around this team. That's the best place for both of them in terms of getting to and winning a Super Bowl. Next guy here I want to talk about, Pat, another wide receiver. This one has some pretty good fantasy implications as well. Chris Godwin is a free agent this upcoming year. He got injured before they end up in playoffs. And then, of course, Tom Brady is now, quote unquote, retired. I don't expect him to stay retired. Whether or not that means he comes back for 2022 is a different question. But it just felt like such a quiet way to go out, which is not how Tom Brady does things. So I expect him to come back. But if he's out for now, I don't see a reason why Chris Godwin would want to stay, because without Tom Brady, it somewhat feels like a rebuild team. They could be losing quite a few players. So Chris Godwin, anywhere you would like to see him go, Pat?
I was just about to ask you, what's his projected contract?
He's currently projected. He's looking for a longer term deal, 4 years at $17.5 million average per year, and then let's just compare that to the top salaries for wide receivers overall. So if we're looking at wide receivers, the current highest paid one in terms of cap hit is DeAndre Hopkins at $25 million. Michael Thomas, ouch, at $24.7 million, and he doesn't even play. Amari Cooper at $22 million. He was the $100 million man when they brought him in. Kenny Golladay at number 4 here in terms of cap hit at $21.15 million. And then Tyreek Hill here rounding out the top 5 at $20.7 million. So is he worth that $17.5 million? I think so, because let's look at who's getting paid in that range. Stephon Diggs is currently at 17.9. That's a decent comp. Below him, Robbie Anderson at 16.8, Adam Thielen at 16.8, Jarvis Landry at 16.3. So yeah, I don't see any reason why he couldn't be paid this amount of money.
Yeah, I guess if there's a few teams I'm looking at based off of that $6.5-7 million per year range, right? So we don't know what's going to happen with Calvin Ridley. Atlanta is totally an option at this point, but I don't know if he'd want to go there because we're assuming Matt Ryan is gone, right? I mean, or not gone, but like we're assuming in terms of like talent, probably gone within like the next year or two. Like, there's no point to go there. You're going to a rookie at some point in that contract, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yes.
So, option, yes. Makes sense, yes. Not for Chris Godwin. Another good one, Cleveland.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would do that. They just got rid of Odell. They suck. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're probably going to get rid of Rashad Higgins, but he wasn't very good anyways. Apparently, Ryan Switzer is also a free agent. I didn't realize he was over there, but I was probably because he didn't play. But they definitely have the ability to get somebody like that, and I think that could be a good fit, depending on, again, if he'd want to play with Baker. I think the most realistic option, though, is Detroit has $22 million in cap space and need a wide receiver. He can easily go there and be the number 1.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's me, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, Jared Goff isn't terrible. Detroit's promising. It seems like there's a good situation there in terms of morale. Like, and
Sure.
he doesn't have to be the offense. It's a run team, not really a running team, but passes out of the backfield, right? So he could easily go there and be the number 1 and command even probably more money. I think that would make sense. Now, is that going to actually happen? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same situation, is it going to be like the Falcons where, is Jared Goff gone soon? So I think of those 3, I think Detroit makes the most sense to me, but there's several others that it would work.
Yeah, I like some of those, and I guess it depends on him, right? What's more important to him? You're going from, again, this is given he doesn't stay in Tampa Bay. You're going from a Super Bowl contending team to something else. And it really is his choice. What's more important to you? Do you want to get the place that's going to pay you the most, or are you still trying to get, another Super Bowl under your belt? So if he's going to go for a team like Detroit, he might never see another Super Bowl, honestly. But they can afford him, like you said. Some other teams with a lot of cap space that I think are kind of interesting is the Los Angeles Chargers. Mike Williams is another guy who is going to be a free agent in 2022. And if they don't re-sign him, they need someone to fill that spot. Now, I'm not saying him and Godwin play the same style of wide receiver, but I think Godwin and Keenan Allen, that's kind of a scary proposition for anyone to take on. And Chargers currently second most cap space with $57.5 million, just counting the top 51 at the moment. But I think that's a good place, and I see the Chargers as a contender in the next few years. I'm a big fan of Herbert, and if he wants a place to grow and make money, I think that makes a lot of sense. This is scary. I don't expect this at all, but just what I'm seeing here, the Bengals have the fourth most cap space, which is impressive. Can you imagine Chris Godwin on that team? The three wide receivers, Chase, Godwin, Higgins. I'll even throw Usama in there because he's been kind of dangerous this season as well. That if they want to take full control of the AFC North or the AFC in general, that might be a way to do it. But I expect them to spend that money elsewhere on the offensive line. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, Von Miller is going to be a free agent here. With these kind of older guys, they don't get those long-term contracts anymore. You can kind of get what's known as the veteran pay, which gives them a certain amount of money. I forget exactly how much, but I see Von Miller probably staying in the Rams. They just won the Super Bowl. Why would he not want to stay there with Aaron Donald and be on the number one defense in the NFL? So I don't think he leaves. It would probably be a shorter term deal. Things probably as short as one year, and then just kind of keep going off of that. I think that's the best move for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, as I'm looking, there's also these little murmurs about him returning to Denver. I think that's realistic, but I'm not going to bank on that. I think you're right. I think he's probably going to stay in Los Angeles, if anything.
I'm going to move down the line here, Pat, to Mike Williams. We somewhat talked about him here with Chris Godwin. He's another guy. He had a very hot start to the 2021 season and then cooled off very quickly. He is a deep type of ball guy, large man that is a great red zone target. Herbert enjoyed throwing him the ball, but he kind of seems to be boomer bust is probably the best way to describe him. If I was him, honestly, it feels like the best move is to just stay put with the Chargers there. But if he's looking to kind of be the number one, that's probably not the place for him. Somewhere he could maybe go is, oh boy, Cleveland. You talked about him there a little bit. Indianapolis probably isn't a bad landing spot either, depending who the quarterback is. T.Y. Hilton's probably on his way out. Michael Pittman has been good, but is he a true number one? That remains to be seen. Who else we got here? I don't think anyone wants to go to Jacksonville, so I won't put that on him. And then, of course, a lot of people are talking about the Washington Commanders looking for another wide receiver to work with Terry McLaurin. So, again, that would kind of feel like a rebuild for his situation. So it comes down to what do they want? Do they want to fight for that Super Bowl, or are they just looking for a payday?
Yeah, I don't know. If he wants to command some big money, though, I think a team kind of in the same ballpark to me as the Colts is, do you want an above average quarterback that's probably going to throw you the ball? Then you might be a Las Vegas Raider. I don't know why that wouldn't be completely impossible, because, their wide receiver core was, I wouldn't say trash, but Darren Waller didn't do anything last year. So, who's their number one? Bryan Edwards?
Ugh.
It's going to be Mike Williams.
Renfro, maybe?
Yeah, Renfro is number one in terms of volume, but to me, he's like Julian Edelman, where it's sort of like you're the number one in terms of stats, but if you're trying them out there, they're going to cover Mike Williams over Renfro.
Let's do another wide receiver here, Pat. Allen Robinson had a very poor time in Chicago, mostly because he didn't have a quarterback. He hasn't had a quarterback most of his damn career, and I feel so bad for him. Now, my suggestion here likely means he, again, won't have a quarterback. But, Pat, I wouldn't mind him coming to Pittsburgh to kind of take over Juju's spot. He has played in the slot a decent amount. He lines up both in the slot and wide. And Juju has done kind of the same thing. So I think he could be a more veteran Juju, a nice voice in the locker room, because we're gonna be a very young team. If we're looking at the average age, I think this still includes Ben at the moment. But right now we're 10th in age. I think if Ben retires, well, he is retiring, I see that number dropping quite a bit. And they need a veteran voice there on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't know who that would be at the moment. Everyone on the offense seems pretty young, whereas the defensive side is our more veteran side, Pat.
Yeah, I like what you said about the Steelers. I think that would make sense. I don't necessarily see it happen just because I don't know if he can really take over as a number 2, because I still think Deontay is going to remain the number 1 guy. And I kind of have this feeling that Juju's going to stay. So if he's willing to take a pay cut, he may have the opportunity to go to Kansas City, because they're probably going to lose DeMarcus Robinson. They also have Byron Pringle as a free agent, so he's going to command more money. Why not try to convince him? Do you want to come try to win a Super Bowl real quick with Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, and again, I talked about it. He's never had a real quarterback, and Mahomes can be that real quarterback, especially now. Little news here: Mahomes told his Jackson Mahomes he's not allowed to come in any more games.
That's sad.
It's just nuts, but he's doing the Aaron Rodgers thing, kind of pushing away his family. A couple other guys I want to talk about here, Pat, real quick. They're not probably the top targets for a lot of teams, but they're bigger names that people enjoy talking about. One of them, Rob Gronkowski, going to be a free agent coming here. His buddy Tom retired. There's not really a reason for him to stay in Tampa Bay anymore, and he said he wants to play with Joe Burrow. What do you think of that move?
I think it's all hosh posh. I don't think he means that at all. So honestly, if I'm him, I wouldn't go to Cincinnati, because think about the competition. Granted, the Tampa Bay had competition wide receiver, but also that competition never was all on the field at the same time. So I think that Rob has a chemistry with Tom that he'll never get at a place like Cincinnati. He might. I could be wrong, but in reality, I mean, you basically play the quarterback your whole entire life. You're more likely to get a target for them, right? So
yeah,
honestly, looking around at team needs, I don't really know where else he could go. It says the Titans need a tight end, but I don't know why he would want to go there. That wouldn't really be an improved situation. He might end up being the number 2 with the way Julio Jones played, but I don't necessarily see that being the type of offense you want to go to, because that's a run-heavy offense in reality. Some other free agent tight ends that could be available that he might be able to slide into. What if Mike Gesicki leaves Miami? That's interesting. That's really it. Those are the 2 that are sticking out to me.
Yeah, it's not a far move from Tampa to Miami.
And you're going into, in my opinion, he's going to be maybe the number 1. I mean, outside Jalen Waddle. Like, Jalen Waddle is definitely the best wide receiver, but like, I'm thinking if I'm a defense and they don't have any other wide receivers, I'm going to probably double team Jalen Waddle, and that leaves Rob wide open, hopefully.
Getting to some trade candidates, of course, the big name is Aaron Rodgers. We talked about him earlier when we were talking about Devontae Adams. There's teams that are in the running for him. I believe the Broncos were the front runners last I checked. Let me look at the odds real quick. Denver was one I heard. Vegas was one I heard. He was buying property. Was it in North Carolina, Pat? I can't remember, but there was some rumor he was buying a house on the East Coast somewhere.
I have no idea. I'm assuming he has multiple homes because he's a bajillionaire.
That's right. Okay,
maybe
so
he's prepping.
Current odds, Denver Broncos are the clear favorite at -130. That makes sense to go be with his old offensive coordinator as their new head coach. Packers are at +165. Steelers actually in third at +600. Pat, I don't see us spending that money for him.
That's because you don't believe.
I don't. I don't believe. It's not a Steeler thing. We don't do that. Miami Dolphins at +1,200. Man, that would mean they really hate Tua. Raiders +1,500. Eagles +1,500. Saints +1,600. Browns +1,600. These odds are as of 2 weeks ago on Bovada. Man, I think there's value in taking Green Bay at plus odds, and if I'm placing a bet today, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think that's the safest bet. I don't see him going to Denver. To me, what's the point? Like,
Yeah,
I don't really view that as a much better situation in terms of roster. I think, if you want to go off of the fact he's going to be with that coach, he doesn't like the franchise, okay, whatever. But in terms of strictly on paper, it's not a logical move. Same thing with the Steelers. It's not really a logical move. I think everybody wants to make it out like Aaron and Mike Tomlin have this buddy-buddy thing. I don't know if that's true. But, I mean, I would not be surprised if he went there. I think he's likely to stay.
yeah, it makes sense to me. The only reason it seems like he wants to leave is just to give a big middle finger to Green Bay. That seems like the only reason he'd want to leave. Another guy here, another QB. I think these might all be quarterbacks. Russell Wilson. They there were some trade rumors here in the middle of the season about him getting traded. He got hurt. I don't know if that squashed the trade rumors or anything, but man, he's expensive here. If they trade him, let me just look at the salaries here. If they trade or cut him before June 1st, they will have a dead cap of 26 million and only save 11 million. If they cut or trade him after June 1st, they'll save 24 million and have a dead cap in both 2022 and 2023 of 13 million. So it gets spread out a bit more there. Again, it's like, where would he go and why is the real question. I've heard rumors about him going to Tampa because it seems like there's no real belief in Kyle Trask taking over where they left off with Brady leaving. But I think the fact is Russell couldn't even fill those shoes. Russell, sure, he's a good quarterback. He'll very likely make the Hall of Fame, but I am not the biggest Russell Wilson fan. I think it's a problem that can't be filled by any of the current quarterbacks. So Russ, I don't see him leaving. I don't see a reason to. Any disagreement there?
I mean, to me, it's the same thing as Aaron. Is we could speculate all we want, but in reality, the logical option is for him to stay still.
Kirk Cousins, next quarterback here, probably the most expensive quarterback on this list. So there were talks about trading him. They 100% will not cut him, and if he's on their team, he is the starting quarterback. He is too expensive. If they cut him pre or post June 1st, they have a dead cap of $45 million because all of his money was guaranteed pretty much. So that's rough. If they trade him, however, they can have a cap savings of $35 million. But the question is, who's going to take that on? And again, I don't see anyone taking this on. So really, this is all just off-season hype, trying to get stories, trying to get clicks on things. But I mean, hey, we're doing the same thing here. But I would imagine they're planning to move forward with Cousins as their quarterback. Just going to run through these other guys here. Carr, Garoppolo, Mayfield. Garoppolo is the same kind of issue as Cousins. Too expensive to kind of get rid of. They may want Trey Lance to come in sooner than later, but I don't see it happening. Carr, I don't know. I think Carr's a bum, personally. Where would he go? Do you think it makes sense a Carr for Baker trade? Would they do that? Do you think?
No, I think that's I wouldn't say illogical, but it's not. What are you getting from that? There's no difference.
Yeah, it's a horizontal trade.
It's like the South Park episode. Do you want the turd sandwich or the douche?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then one other name here I'm going to bring up, Pat, because this one's ridiculous. Saquon Barkley. They're not going to trade him. Do you know how pissed off the Giants fan would be? I understand the injuries and everything, but you have no one else on that team at the moment. So what are you going to do? Again, that seems like just kind of a clickbait name to throw around here.
Somebody we didn't mention in terms of teams that you talk about, like the B level quarterbacks available who aren't up for trade, right? What about Houston? Now, granted, their projected cap is 17, but I feel like you can finagle some things to get a Kirk Cousins or a Derek Carr.
Yeah, Yeah, that's fair. I think though my current assumption for them is they're going to stick with Mills. I think he showed enough to kind of be the guy. I also think they're hoping Watson might come back at some point. So I don't know what goes on there, but if I'm any of those quarterbacks, I would straight up refuse a trade to Houston. Let's get into the mock NFL draft here, Pat. I figure we'll just kind of go through this pick for pick. We'll each put in a guy. We list out why we think it'll be this guy, and kind of go from there. Some of these we'll just kind of quickly talk through because they're not very exciting positions. But some of the bigger names, bigger positions, sure, we'll get into a bit more of a discussion here. So, pick number 1, Pat. Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock for the second year in a row. They already have their franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. What do? Are they going to take the guy they should take, Aiden Hutchinson, to kind of build out their defense, or are they going to get him some protection? There's quite a few tackles here. I believe Evan Neal is the current favorite to go to Jacksonville here at pick numero uno.
Honestly, I could see them going multiple ways. If I was Jacksonville, I would probably trade this pick and do the whole Miami thing where you start acquiring massive amounts of capital because you just need too much. I don't think even if you get Aiden Hutchinson, it's going to change anything. And if we're doing the PFF simulator, it has the Texans trading and all kinds of nonsense. So you get like another first, you move back to slot 3 and you get a third. I would totally take that in this situation. I think it's going to be probably Aiden Hutchinson. You're going to take the best player available because it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Evan Neal here. I think they want to protect Trevor if he is their future. Like I said, I think it should be Hutchinson, but I see them going Evan Neal here, like I said, to protect their future quarterback. They don't want him getting hurt kind of the way Joe Burrow did, even though it ended up working out and they make it to the Super Bowl the year afterwards. But that is just my assumption here. But it's a coin flip here. Last time I looked at the odds for first overall pick, it was a tie between Hutchinson and Neal at plus 175 odds. But we'll know more as we go through the combine and some more talks occur. But I'm going Neal here for this pick. Detroit is now on the clock at pick number 2. I would assume we might be going just flip-flop here. So for me, Hutchinson's going to Detroit. They're a defensive-minded head coach there. Their defense has struggled this entire time where, we can make fun of their offense as much as we want, but the fact is their defense was the one that allowed all these points. So I'm taking Hutchinson to go to Detroit. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It could really go either way. Detroit's defense is kind of trash. So, honestly, I could see them probably taking Kayvon Thibodeau, get some more defensive help to try to rush in the NFC North. Realistically, they could basically take any of the top 3 or 4 defensive prospects, but I think you're going to take, again, the other guy that was really earlier this year. I'm pretty sure he was projected ahead of Aiden Hutchinson. It wasn't until this past season. So I could see 2 edges in a row.
Number 3 here then, Pat, we have the Houston Texans, and I like that Pro Football Focus for their needs says every position. They need literally everything they can do. So for me, Kayvon Thibodeau is currently still on my board. He's the best available. I'm taking him for Houston. Again, I apologize for you going there.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the situation where I'm going to try to get some offensive line help. They got rid of, oh gosh, help me with his name. Laremy Tunsil?
Yes.
So let's go. I'm going to go the highest ranked offensive lineman in terms of ADP, and that's where, you were talking about Evan Neal. I think that's a realistic pick at 3. And going back to what we talked about with the Jags, if they trade back and it allows for Houston to come up and get the rusher, the Jags could realistically take a tackle at this spot and just get an additional pick and probably get the guy that's, like you said, probably the best fit in terms of need.
4th on the board, the New York Jets here. Current needs are listed as the wide receiver, linebacker, and defensive back position. And the best defensive back on the board is currently Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. I've done a few mocks here, and one of them I had Kyle Hamilton going to Houston, and I keep flip flopping here. So I think at least for this draft, I'm gonna have him going to the New York Jets to help out their defense. If we look at their defensive ratings here, yeah, I have him going to the Jets this time around. The Jets were the third worst team in terms of pass coverage. Only two teams behind them were Detroit and the Texans. So bring in Kyle Hamilton. He instantly helps that out.
Yeah, I hate this, but I'll probably agree with you in this situation. So I have nothing else.
Giants on the board here. They have 2 top 10 picks. We're not going to do any trades for this mock, but honestly, if I am the Steelers or another team that would like whoever they believe is the number 1 quarterback for this pick, maybe they trade one of those away before the run of teams that need quarterbacks. So New York on the clock here. They need quite a few things here. They need some offensive line help at the guard and center position. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they need an edge rusher and or another linebacker. So for me, I think they want to get Saquon Barkley the ball. They want to keep him healthy. How do you do that? You build up your line. And so for me, there's quite a few I can take here. And honestly, put them in any order you like. I think they are all pretty damn good. But I'm going to go with Akeem Aquanu. And I really hope I pronounce that correct. Tackle out of North Carolina State. 24/7 Sports only had him as a 3-star recruit out of high school, but he has improved every single year since he started. His 2021 overall grade at the position was 91.6. He is not the biggest tackle on the board here, but he is very talented and explosive. So he can open those holes for Saquon Barkley. And, like I said, I don't think they're trading Barkley anytime soon. So let him do the work he's there to do.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I definitely think that they're going to go line, and I was kind of picking between the 3 because this is what happens every year. There's always like 3 or 4, top people in every position, and they're interchangeable depending on what a team likes. Remember last year, Jalen Waddle was supposed to possibly go to the Bengals. All the wide receivers mix around. The same thing happens. We don't see half of what goes on in those interviews, right? So if I'm looking at the Giants' true roster, they need some offensive line help, and I totally agree with you. But honestly, I'm looking at Tyler Lindbaum from Iowa center, highest graded FBS center the past 2 years. Now, PFF has him as a bottom line top 10 pick. And to me, why would you not take that? When you have comparatively, Charles Cross he was a 5-star recruit, didn't allow pressure on 66 passing blocks snaps, which is good, but also he plays for Mississippi State in the SEC. So did he have a better strength of schedule than Iowa? Who knows? Like you said with Aquanu, he's a good pick as well. I think you can go either of those 3, but I'm going to take the best center available.
Yeah, I do not disagree with that at all, Pat. And funny enough, in a lot of my mock drafts, I had them taking both of these guys. They have another pick here right after Carolina, and I just have them completely fleshing out their offensive line. So here we have Carolina on the clock. They're currently in need for quarterbacks, supposedly. I mean, not supposedly. It's definitely a fact. But another fact is Sam Darnold is expensive. If you cut him, he's going to still cost you $18.9 million. You have to trade him away. After that shit season that Darnold had, that is a tough thing to do. So I don't think they get rid of Sam Darnold. And because of that, I don't think they're drafting a quarterback here. Maybe this is another pick that gets traded away. So for me, I'm going to end up helping out their line here, and I'm going to have them take Charles Cross out of Mississippi State.
Yeah, I agree with that because their left tackle right now is Cam Irving, and I didn't remember he was in the league, to be honest with you, because remember how he got drafted so high by Cleveland? Everyone's like, I don't know if that's a great pick. He's not bad, but I think that he could be someone that you could eventually replace just because he is 29, so he's definitely getting older. I agree with you. I think I would take Cross as well.
Yeah, and then just looking at some more of the rankings here, the Carolina Panthers were 5th in pass blocking. So, maybe it wasn't completely Sam Darnold's fault. Yes, he made a few blockheaded passes, but Cam Newton was not nearly any better. So maybe if Darnold gets some protection, they can have a bit more success here. Also, if CMC is healthy coming back, that's a quick outlet if he is still under pressure. So if everyone's healthy coming into that and they build out that offensive line, good for them. I think they end up with a much better season. On the board, pass block. So they need help on that offensive line. Getting Tyler and Akeem in there, again, I think that boosts them tremendously.
I totally agree with you. I think that would make sense. I think looking at defensive needs, though, for the Giants, I think they're more in the category like the Texans, where you kind of need a little bit of everything, right? Why not get theoretically the best prospects still available? PFS Big Board's ranked number 3. Get a Derek Stingley, because if you address the line twice, we always talk about first rounders could technically be hit or miss. There's no guarantee. I think it's more of like not putting all of your eggs in one basket. And if you can get what PFF is considering, honestly, one of the best prospects available, he had the highest coverage grade in the country in 2019. And he had 14 interceptions when he was in high school. Like he seems to be a good opportunity as a playmaker, which I think for the Giants, you kind of need some more guys like that. I feel like the Giants are a very vanilla team. So I think for me, that's the kind of guy that I would take.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's fair. I have an issue with Stingley. I think the Giants have enough issues with injury problems. And as you can see, 15 games, which is why they said if he went into the draft that year, he would have been a top 5 pick. But he ends up being injured in 2020 and 2021, only playing 7 games in 2020. 2021, he's only played 3 games. So that's my worry there. But I agree, taking someone on the defensive side is a good move. I had a few where I was actually taking Karlaftis, an edge rusher there. But I think either one makes sense. So Atlanta here, I almost took a wide receiver just because we don't know the Calvin Ridley status. Man, I'm just going to make a bad assumption that he will be back next year. So I'm going to leave out a wide receiver, and I'm going to go to the cornerback position. They were 7th worst in coverage. They need some help there. I'm going to take a quarterback. For all the reasons I brought up about Stingley, I'm going to take Trent McDuffie instead.
Yeah, I kind of agree with your logic. I think the difference for me, though, is I'm looking at the 2 quarterbacks, right? Obviously said Trent McDuffie didn't allow any more than 39 yards in a game. That's very interesting. I didn't realize that. And he also allowed only 2 deep receptions in his career. Very, very interesting stats. But what I'm really looking at is Ahmad Gardner. He's never allowed a touchdown ever for Cincinnati. Now, granted, do we say that Washington's in a better division than Cincinnati? I don't really know at this point. I think Washington's, Pac-12, they have a little bit more high-profile teams. But I think the AAC is not horrible. So I think for me, it's a crapshoot, and just for the sake of being different, I'll take Gardner.
Oh boy. All right. So Broncos on the board here. We are assuming that they didn't trade or won't be trading for Aaron Rodgers here. So because of that, I'm going to have them take a quarterback here, Pat, and I'm scared. I don't know who it's going to be. I think Pickett had a lot of hype coming around him, but there is, of course, worries about him being older. I don't really put too much stock into that. They also have worries about him holding onto the ball too long, and that's what Drew Lock does. And I don't think they want another Drew Lock situation. Again, Pickett is probably way better than Drew Lock. To be seen, but I'm just going to go. Man, I'm going to go with Sam Howell here out of North Carolina. He was my favorite quarterback of this draft class before the season even started. I believe, was he injured? Let's see here. Yeah, I believe he was injured for some of this season. Either way, he's a big dude, 6'1", 220. Currently the number one ranked quarterback. That I honestly expect that to change coming out of the hell's that thing? The combine. But he has a ton of arm strength. Accuracy isn't terrible, but I like the Broncos receivers, and if they can have a quarterback that can actually launch a ball downfield, that's scary. A big reason why they want Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying how it's going to become him, but I think he is a decent first step forward for the Broncos.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I hate to say it. I think I agree with you. They're going to go quarterback. And I don't think they're going to take Kenny Pickett, but I have to highlight this. The first career highlight for PFF, fake slide versus Wake Forest, forced a rule change. How is that a highlight? The man was a Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
This pisses me off. I don't even want to read this website anymore. I don't know what it is. For some reason, everybody loves Matt Corral. To me, I feel like usually with the quarterback, it's always the guy who's been the number one hype for the longest time. Some guys creep up, but I don't know if you agree with this. Matt Corral's been the number one in terms of probably going to go first for a while, right? I know Sam Howell's good and he's been talked about, but North Carolina was not that great this year. I feel like people are in love with Ole Miss because they're finally kind of coming back into the spotlight. And I feel like because he's SEC, he's going to get a little bit more credit than some of these other guys.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And that's usually the case. These SEC guys have a better rap sheet record in the NFL. I mean, I think it's something like, I don't know, 60% of the NFL is SEC. I'm not, don't quote me on that, but it's a lot. The majority of the players are from the SEC. Jets back on the clock here. I'm going to let them continue building out their defense. I think they're in a pretty decent spot with Elijah Moore at the wide receiver. So where they need help is with their run defense. And how do you fix that? You get a linebacker. So they were the third worst run defense, and they were the 10th worst in terms of quarterback pressure. So I like Devin Lloyd. He brings both of those things. He has an 82 run defense grade and an 88.4 pass rush grade. He's a big dude, 6'3", 235 pounds. Honestly, should probably bulk up a little bit before the combine, but he is going to be a good weapon for them on the defensive side of the ball. You have him putting pressure on the quarterback, and then you have Kyle Hamilton intercepting the ball when the quarterback makes a mistake because he's getting pressured.
Yeah, totally fair. I think that, I went with them taking Kyle Hamilton, defensive back, and in general, probably the first pick. I think in this situation, you have to help I almost said Sam Darnold. You have to help Zach Wilson. And you have two wide receivers available in the top 15, realistically. Drake London, Garrett Wilson. I think I'm going to take Drake London just because it seems to be that he may end up being the more consistent pick. And I don't necessarily trust anybody from Ohio State.
Yeah, no way I can blame you there for not trusting anyone from Ohio State. Washington, next on the board here, and I also think they will be taking a quarterback. Fitzpatrick was supposed to be the guy. He gets injured early in the season, and then Taylor Heineke just kind of fills that gap a little bit. We all kind of understand how that went. So what do they need? They need a quarterback. I think if you are, what's his name? Ron, if you're Ron Rivera, maybe you want to get someone who could be kind of like your Cam Newton. You're starting over, and I think that guy is going to be Desmond Ridder. 6'4", 250 pounds, so big dude. He had 951 air yards, 10 touchdowns, 915 rushing yards, and 18 rushing touchdowns his senior year. That's the guy Ron Rivera is going to be looking for on his team, and I think they can get him here at the 11th pick overall.
Yeah, I totally think that's fair. And, I could totally see them taking a quarterback, but I think they're going to pick somebody free agency. I don't see them doing that because I just don't. I think teams that make the same mistake are going to keep trying to draft rookies and hope it pans out. And granted, they haven't really done that since RG3, but I think they're the type of roster where they're not ready to move on. I don't think they're ready to become competitive. I would not waste your pick right now on a first round quarterback. I think getting a guy, not exactly Derek Carr, but like that type of player, someone who's a little bit younger, just to hold you over, should be fine. So I'm not really sure what I'm missing, but in a lot of the other mocks I've looked at, he's super low. But could you imagine if George Karlaftis and Chase Young are on the same field together?
Oh boy.
Why not? Because think about it.
Poor
The
quarterbacks.
Steelers have had great success doing stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Just loading the blitz. I think if you do that, then you can kind of compensate for not having a great offense. So I'm going to go with that.
Vikings up on the board here. They say they haven't needed quarterback. I don't think they're going quarterback here. I think Kirk is still going to be the guy. I think they go defense. They were kind of middle of the mall type of pass coverage here this past year. So I think they'll go cornerback here. I think that's kind of what's good here on the board. Man, I think they. What one do they want? I already kind of talked about my displeasure with Stingley. So, yeah. So I'm going to go Ahmad Gardner here, cornerback out of Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think that's good. I've just been kind of browsing other people's mocks to kind of see what the consensus is. It seems like most people have them taking defensive back, so I think that that's super fair. And in this situation, my guy remaining in the top is Trent McDuffie, so I'll just roll with that.
Browns on the board here. Odell left them. Jarvis is kind of old. Baker sucks. So they're going to try to blame it on the wide receivers here, and they're going to take another one. They're going to take probably the best wide receiver in the class, Drake London, out of USC. 4-star recruit coming out of high school and built his way up. He had a 91.3 offensive overall grade by PFS. 88 receptions, 1,084 yards, 12.3 a reception, 7 touchdowns. So he kind of seems like that perfect fill-in for Odell Beckham. But this dude's massive, 6'5", 210 pounds. Yeah, I'd be excited to see what he can do without Baker, that is. So Drake London going to the Browns.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Obviously, I already picked him, so I think the Browns are stupid enough to trust somebody from Ohio State, so that gives them Garrett Wilson, according to mine.
George Karlaftis going to Baltimore. Baltimore has always kind of been a scary defense since the days of, Ray Lewis, sadly. And to only further how scary their defense could be, they're going to add Big George out of Purdue.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Their needs is listed are defensive line, defensive back. Honestly, were we really impressed with Big Al this year? I don't really think so. So I think they're going to take the best available prospect right now, according to PFF, and it's going to be Ekwonu from North Carolina State. And why not just make the line a little bit younger?
Philadelphia has 2 picks in a row here. This is another spot I would like the Steelers to trade up to before the Saints could possibly take a quarterback, but who knows what they end up doing. So first pick here for the Eagles, I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball. They weren't terrible on the defensive side of the ball, but where they were lacking was in their rush defense. And like I said before, how you fix that? You get a linebacker. Lloyd is already drafted, so I'm having them take Nakobe Dean out of Georgia.
Yeah, for mine, I totally agree with your logic, and I have not taken Lloyd yet, so that's who I will take for my first pick for Philly.
And then for their second pick here, they need a defensive back. And Stingley is still on the board. It's very likely he doesn't make it this far into the draft, but he's currently here for me, so I'll just have the Eagles taking him.
So my goal for all the too early is that we can kind of do some stupid shit, right? This is how my life would not be super upset, but I think that the rumors about Jalen not being the guy might be true. in terms of the Eagles' perspective.
Ooh.
So I could see them going crazy and getting a guy like a Malik Willis. So we're just gonna do that just for fun, because
Okay.
there's always that one pick in the draft where everyone's like, "Why did you do this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
This is that pick.
Yeah. No. I like it. I like it. Um, I would hope Hurts kind of keeps taking that step forward, but they were trying to get rid of him the whole season. So honestly, this does make sense. Chargers on the clock here. We talked about Mike Williams becoming a free agent here. And honestly, if they could have him, I would have them taking Drake London. He's that same big body type of receiver that Mike Williams was. But given that he is gone, I could have them take Jameson Williams here. But I don't think so. I think they're going to go and try to improve their defensive side of the ball. And Jordan Davis is sitting here, defensive interior. He isn't the greatest, but he is a big dude at 6'6", 340 pounds. I think they take him to kind of beef up that defensive line.
Yeah, I'm thinking defense as well. I'm thinking a little bit differently though. My logic is, always adding to the defensive back, because obviously, wide receiver, assuming Mike Williams is gone, totally important. I think wide receiver is one of those positions that you can get throughout the draft, and it doesn't matter if it's first or fourth round. They still have the same potential. So I think I would hold off on wide receiver. You can get a guy like Andrew Booth Jr. and bolster your pass defense, especially in a place like the AFC West, where if Rodgers shows up, you're going to need as much defensive help as possible.
Saints are now on the board here, and I am very torn. I can see them taking either quarterback or a wide receiver. Quarterback for obvious reasons. I don't know if Jameis resigns here. We saw Taysom is not the answer. And then wide receiver, I also think that makes sense because Michael Thomas doesn't seem to want to be there. So why not just replace him? Man, it's a tough one. I think they could wait another round to get a quarterback. But like you said, Patty, it's early. Let's do something crazy. I'm going to have them take. Oh, why did I do that? I'm going to have them take Matt Corral out of Mississippi. Mississippi's right next to Louisiana. They could. That's my reasoning this early.
Well, that's terrible reasoning, and I highly disagree with your pick. I'm just kidding. But for me, I don't really know. I kind of agree with you in the same point, but obviously I already have Corral gone. Just kind of looking at different quarterbacks. I'm saving Kenny Pickett for something very specific. So, Sam Howell's highly ranked. We're just going to throw him out there. Like I said, I feel like the quarterbacks, they mix themselves in after a while. Since in reality, in this year, there's not really a true guaranteed number one. There's no Andrew Luck or anything like that.
Pick number 19, Philadelphia Eagles. Again, they are kind of building out their defense here. I already had them take quite a few of them. I thought about having them take David Ajabo. He was kind of the second guy behind Hutchinson there at Michigan. And I think that's a great pick, but that's a lot of defense. And I think they want to switch it up here. Get Devonta Smith some additional help. And I think they can do that here. And I'm going to have them actually skip over Garrett Wilson and take Jameson Williams out of Alabama.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I think that they're going to continue to add a defense. Obviously, with my picks, I gave him a quarterback and linebacker. So why not get an edge rusher in David Ajabo?
The time has come, Pat. Pittsburgh is now on the clock. Pick number 20. They need a quarterback. Quite a few here to choose from. I know there seems to be some rapport going on between Malik Willis and Tomlin. They seem to like him. But if Kenny Pickett is on the board, he is from Pitt. I don't think you can pass him up, even though if you don't think he's the number one guy, I don't think it matters. They're first and foremost, an NFL team is a business. If they take Pickett, jerseys are going to fly off the shelves just because everyone there already likes him. So Kenny Pickett is staying home here in Pittsburgh.
Oh man, I was gonna be the one who took that leap, but I'm gonna do it too. Let's make it happen.
Let's do it. This
I
is
don't think it's the
willing
right
it.
answer, but we're gonna do it.
I don't either. Well, I don't think a tackle is a bad idea either. You know, if we think we can wait until the second round and get a quarterback, which is completely possible because I don't see anyone in this back half of the first round taking a quarterback. So waiting to the second is a risk, but someone is going to be there. And if we want to take, a Bernard Raymond, I'm honestly fine with that as well. Get the offensive line some help. Get Najee some help.
Yeah, I was looking at him
We
as
need it.
well, and I mean, if we talked about Tyler Linderbaum going earlier. I mean, Steelers, they need a center really bad. I mean, Trey Turner, I know he's not a center, but I hope he leaves. I hate him. Honestly, our whole line can leave for all I care. We need somebody who's not just like a highly graded SEC lineman. We need someone who's got like wheels or like, I can't think of the word. How do you say it? Who's got a lot of tread or miles, right? You need somebody who's started a lot. That's who I'm looking for.
Patriots right after the Steelers here. This is where it starts to get tricky. There's a lot they can do here. That says they need a wide receiver, which they absolutely do. They really don't have a wide receiver one. So, they could end up taking Garrett Wilson, at least for me, or Chris Olave. I don't really know. I don't know how I feel about that. That seems, I don't know. It doesn't seem like what Belichick would do. So I'm trying to get into the Belichick mind of what he would do, because if we remember his last early wide receiver pick with N'Keal Harry, that went horribly. And I think that is still kind of stuck in his mind. So I'm going to have them take a cornerback here. They need a little help there. Andrew Booth Jr., not related to John Wilkes Booth, out of Clemson, is going to the Patriots.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that you need to get inside their head. I'm looking at the best available prospect that I have left, and it looks like it's going to be Nakobe Dean for me.
Raiders on the board here. I don't think there's a chance they don't take a wide receiver after the loss of the speedster. Man, I don't even remember his name. He's a murderer. Henry Ruggs, murderer, man. They're going to take a wide receiver here. They have a lot of choices here. And, I think it is going to come down to the combine. They want another speedster. And who's that going to be? Honestly, on the board here for me right now, Chris Olave kind of seems like the fastest that is available. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, we're still doing the fun version. So just kind of looking at some interesting tidbits from the career highlights. Jermaine Johnson, he benched 300 pounds of 15. That sounds like the kind of guy the Raiders would take.
Big fucker.
Yeah, edge rusher from Florida State. I don't know. It's a crapshoot with them. You can put whoever you want in the front office. It's not going to change anything. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with the guy who can bench a lot.
I like it. Boy, oh boy. Okay, Arizona Cardinals on the board here. Let's see who they can get to make Kyler Murray happy. They need some help with the run block. They were second to last in run block. The only one behind them was the Houston Texans. So Austin Eckler needs a bit of help. Texas A&M Aggies have a guy here, Kenyon Green, at the guard position. He's kind of moved around a bit. He's played guard. He's played tackle. But mostly he has played left guard. Not the best pass blocker, but if they want to keep running the ball with Edmonds and Connor, depending on who ends up staying there, I think he's a decent player to put in there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'm going to go with the same logic. However, I'm taking the best available offensive lineman left, and that's going to be Bernard Raymond.
And Pat, I have Bernard Raymond right after that pick going to Dallas. We kind of saw what was going on. Their offense really, it's weird. They were able to put up a lot of points, but we have to remember their defense was doing a lot of that scoring. So Dak was a disappointment. CeeDee Lamb was a disappointment. Cooper was a disappointment. Zeke was a disappointment. So I think that all starts from the line out. So I'm having Raymond go to Dallas to help that situation.
Yeah, and that would totally make sense. I think I'm looking at them from the perspective of it seems like their defense was fairly improved, but there's rumors Randy Gregory may not come back. So I'm gonna take the edge rusher Trayvon Walker.
Buffalo Bills on the board here. Disappointing end to the season. How do they fix it? I don't really know. that seems like a very internalized question that they need to think about. They're decent on both sides of the ball. Allen just had some on and off games. So to kind of help him out there, I'm going to have them take a wide receiver, my dude, Jahan Dotson, out of Penn State, coming to work on the opposite side of Stephon Diggs. Yes, Gabriel Davis is there. You know, they have a few other wide receivers. I think Cole Beasley is should retire, honestly. But I'm going to go with Dotson here, out of Penn State. We are.
We are what?
What?
What are we?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't know. It's like you kind of said with them, it could go either way. I could see them getting a wide receiver because I think what we realized is that Stephon Diggs wasn't as dominant this year. Fortunately, Dawson Knox covered for that. But outside of him, they didn't really have anybody else who really stood up. So I think I'm going to roll with Jameson Williams. I'm going to take it seems like the Alabama wide receivers are usually a pretty safe bet for the most part outside of driving really fast. But I think that Buffalo is going to help Josh Allen a little bit more.
Who we got here? Tennessee Titans on the board next. It's an interesting one. I honestly think they should get another wide receiver. I don't think Julio lasts long enough for him to really make an impact. AJ Brown is still fantastic when he's able to play, but if you have two guys that are going to keep getting hurt, that is an issue. So, man, part of me wants them to take a wide receiver here. I don't think they will. So who do we got left? I think, let's see, defensive side of the ball, they were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th worst in pressuring the quarterback. And if we look here at who is still on the board, see, it's tough late in the draft because all the guys who are kind of expected to go in order, now it's way more wide open. So for me, I'm going to end up taking Ajabo out of Michigan so they can kind of get more pressure on the quarterback because somehow their defense was ranked 10th overall by Pro Football Focus, but it did not feel like that. It felt like they had a really tough time keeping teams in check.
Yeah, for Tennessee, I think you're going to take, for me, the best prospect available. You're going to take a very flexible lineman, and I still have Kenyon Green available. And I'm going to take him, assuming Tannehill's not going to be there much longer. And then that way, once he gets some opportunities to start, you can bring in whoever the new quarterback is, and you kind of already have established line presence.
For my Buccaneers pick, I am going to have them take a wide receiver because I think Chris Godwin ends up leaving. Garrett Wilson is still on the block for me. So what's the opposite of the Penn State guy? It's the Ohio State guy. So they're going to bring in Garrett Wilson. I thought about going defense here as well because that's really where they struggled. But again, my worry is without Tom, he's kind of the foundation of this offense. So I don't know what to expect out of this offense moving forward without Tom Brady, but it will definitely not be as coherent.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I think that everyone's assuming that they're going to go wide receiver. I think that that's totally logical. However, I think for the sake of this, just try to talk about something different because we can't predict what's going to happen with them. I could totally see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers crashing, and I would not draft a wide receiver if we don't know what the future is going to look like, right? So for me, I'm going to probably take a guy like a Devontae Wyatt, just get some defensive line help and get somebody who just came off a national championship at Georgia. And to me, you're trying to build up for the future and counter whatever quarterback you have coming in. I don't think bringing in a new quarterback and throwing random wide receivers, that's not going to fix the problem. I feel like Tampa has always been sort of built on a pretty solid defense. So I think you just kind of bolster that and just kind of hope to hold on for dear life. And moving on to the Packers, I'm looking at some other people. kind of all over the place between wide receiver and defensive line. An interesting one I see is Sky Moore he actually went to Shadyside Academy. People don't really give the MAC a lot of credit, but the MAC actually produces some pretty good offensive talent, specifically wide receivers. So he's a very interesting pick in this situation. I think you have to take a wide receiver if you're going to keep Aaron Rodgers. I think logically what I would do if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers would take Trevor Penning, because you have 9 of 12 games where he's earned a 90-plus run blocking grade this past year. Now, granted, pretty sure they're FCS. I don't think that matters, because if you allow for Aaron Jones to have a better offensive line, that takes less pressure off of Rodgers. But I think for the sake of what do I assume they're going to do, they're probably going to take the best available wide receiver left on my board, and that's Chris Olave.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I was going to have him take Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. But like we kind of talked about at the beginning of this episode, I think Rodgers stays. And I also think they tag Devontae Adams. So given that, let's say they are planning to do that, I think they're okay to leave the wide receiver position kind of open and let Lazard, MVS kind of figure it out. Maybe they sign some other free agents. So given that, I am going to do exactly what you just said. I'm going to bring in Trevor Penning. Miami here, I don't really agree that they need a wide receiver. I think Jalen Waddle is absolutely fantastic. So to kind of counteract that, I'm going to completely ignore that little statement there. And instead, I'm going to get Tua a bit of help on the pass blocking. He was under fire quite a bit, and I don't think Tua is that great to begin with. Of course, we would like Raymond here, Penning here, but guess what? They just got stolen. So what are you going to do now here? Man, if we look at who is left, I think probably the highest rated tackle out there is now Daniel. Oh boy, Faalele, Faale. I really apologize for butchering that name, but he's another guy. He missed his 2020 season, but he's another lineman who has played the same position his entire college career. 665 snaps in 2019 at right tackle and 835 at right tackle in 2021. 78.9 run block grade, and what's kind of more important here is a 76.6 pass blocking grade. He only allowed 1 sack his senior year and 2 hits, 5 hurries. That's the kind of help that the Miami Dolphins need to protect Tua.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. However, I do think that they're crazy enough to go wide receiver, and I think that they'll probably take a guy like a Treylon Burks, just because, like you said, Jalen's great, but Mike Gesicki might leave. After Jalen Waddle, who is their wide receiver? Is it Devontae Parker? Does he still play football? I'm not sure. Or Jakeem Grant's not even on the team. I don't even know who there is. So I think that they'll probably pick the wide receiver in this situation.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Kansas City, next up. I don't mind them taking a wide receiver here, but I think they're actually okay. Even if they lose some of the other auxiliary pieces, it doesn't matter. If Kelsey's there, if Hill's there, that is their entire passing offense. So I'm going to have them go on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to have them get some help where they need it. And that is with the rush defense. And I'm going to take another Penn State guy here, Arnold Ibikite. That also probably really butchered that. But either way, his pass rush grade, 90.5. Run defense, 78.3. Either way, fantastic player. 8 sacks, 12 hits, 32 hurries, and 1 batted ball in his senior season.
Yeah, I think I'm going defense as well. Honestly, you could pick anybody really on defense to make it help, but I'm going to take Kaiir Elam from Florida. I think that you can always, the same concept I had for the Chargers, you can always add pass help when you're in the AFC West.
Cincinnati next up here. We know they need to take someone on that offensive line. Zion Johnson here out of Boston College is probably the highest ranked guard here at the moment. 84.4 run block grade, 81.6 pass block grade. Only allowed 3 sacks in his entire college career, which is exactly the type of protection they need for Joe Burrow. So hopefully this helps him out a good bit, and he will have a new home in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think that my best available lineman at this point in time is Trevor Penning, so we'll throw him in there.
And just because we're getting wild here, Detroit actually has the final pick of the first round that they traded from LA whenever they made the Stafford, Jared Goff trade. But I do not believe Jared Goff is their future. I think they are going to take a shot at a quarterback here, and the quarterback they are going to take is Malik Willis out of Liberty.
Mine's not as exciting. I think they're going to take Sky Moore, because why not take another Michigan kid?
Yeah, that's a good point. Bring in his teammate. Yeah, no, I don't mind that at all. But that'll do it for our early round 1 mock draft. You can check out these picks on Twitter. We'll tweet them out here, Pat. You can save the image at the bottom. But yeah. Oh, excuse me. That'll do it for this episode as well. Hopefully next week we'll have some more things to bet on. NBA basketball should be coming back next week. I say should be. It will be coming back next week. We'll get some bets in on that. Again, follow our Action Networks. All of the links are in the description. And even though football's over, the betting doesn't stop. You can do some prop bets here on Monkey Knife Fight. Get your first deposit matched instantly up to $100. They actually had some prop bets today on whatever this All-Star game is for the NBA. You could even bet on some of the celebrity players, such as Machine Gun Kelly, for over/under points. It's a weird thing, but prop bets are fun. Check out our link in the description to get started.
Yeah, and something else you should check out is BarkBox. It's a monthly subscription where you can get toys and treats delivered to your door in a cool theme package that is great for any size dog. They have stuff for puppies. They have stuff for bigger dogs, normal sized dogs. They have started recently doing food now, which I have yet to try, but I am definitely interested in doing that. It's called Bark Eats, I believe. So they have all kinds of different stuff. If you click our link, you'll get a free month of the BarkBox, and you can try it out for yourself.
Thanks, and we'll check you out next time.